You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you're pouring your energy into things that don't deserve it. You're burning yourself out trying to explain who you are to people who don't care. You try to justify your decisions, to defend your dreams in front of doubtful eyes. And worst of all, you wait for someone to give you permission to start something you should have begun long ago. Every time you pause to explain your path, you steal a piece of your own progress. And the sad part is, you don't even realize it. You say you're exhausted, but the real reason isn't your workload. It's that you're constantly playing defense in your own life. You've turned your existence into a PR campaign just to earn the nod of approval from people who've never invested anything in you but their doubts. You're wasting your most precious resource, your focus on meaningless conversations, unverified gossip, and glances that will never move you forward. And by the end of the day, all you feel is emptiness. Why do you do it? Because you don't realize that the need to explain is a symptom of silent insecurity. You think if others understand, you'll feel more grounded. But here's the truth. No one needs to understand you in order for you to move forward. And you don't need anyone's permission except your own decisiveness. Life doesn't reward those who are reasonable in the eyes of the majority. It carves a path only for those who dare to work in silence and let their results speak. The more you try to please the world, the further you drift from yourself. The more you obsess over proving your worth, the more disconnected you become from the real value waiting to be unlocked within. And then you wonder why you can't move forward, why you feel drained every day, why your career is stagnant despite trying so hard. The answer is, you're aiming your energy in the wrong direction. You're pouring it outward instead of channeling it inward. Success doesn't require you to talk much. It only needs you to act clearly and decisively. No one needs to hear what you're going to do. They just need to see that you've done it. Don't let your life be driven by the need for agreement. Don't let your brain be distracted by the urge to explain. The person who truly makes an impact is the one who knows exactly where they're going and doesn't need to report that journey to anyone. They let the only sound be the echo of their footsteps. Do you know why most people fail? Not because they lack talent, but because they burn their energy on things that don't create value. They let their emotions set the schedule. They let rumors dictate their beliefs. They allow the eyes of others to define how high they're allowed to fly. And what's dangerous is they don't even realize they're surrendering their autonomy little by little. When you care too much about what others think, you start to lose your inner voice. When you're constantly worried about being judged, you build invisible walls around yourself. And when you always feel the need to prove you're worthy, it means you never believed it in the first place. So I'm telling you directly, stop. Don't waste another second trying to convince people who have nothing to do with your destination. The moment you stop justifying yourself, you'll feel your energy return. Your mind will feel lighter, your heart will feel steadier, and your hands will begin to do more than you ever thought possible. The right kind of silence is a weapon. It's not a sign of weakness. It's the mark of a mind so strong, it no longer needs to persuade anyone but itself. Starting today, let your actions speak for you. Work in silence. Let your results make the noise. Be selective about where you place your energy, because if you don't control it, the world out there will, and you'll always be the one paying the price. No one but you is responsible for the direction of your life. And the first thing you need to understand is this: the world doesn't care. It doesn't care how hard you've tried. It doesn't care how exhausted you are. It doesn't care how big your dreams are. It runs on a simple rule. Either you move forward or you get replaced. While you spend hours complaining that no one supports you, that people don't understand you, that life is unfair, the world keeps turning. It doesn't pause for a second to wait for you to be ready. And it certainly doesn't have time to comfort you. You might find this harsh, but I'm telling you, it's a truth that will set you free. The moment you stop expecting the world to care, you begin shifting your focus inward, and that is the most powerful transformation you can make in your self-development journey. Stop waiting, start leading yourself. Because if you don't care about yourself seriously, no one else will do it for you. Most people stay stuck not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack focus. They let the noise of the outside world scramble their inner compass. They spend energy on things they can't control, and then wonder why they're not moving forward. They worry about how others see them, but never take time to truly look at themselves. And you know what happens next? They start living a life that isn't theirs, but the crowd's full of expectations and fear of judgment. I've seen too many people miss their true potential because they're too busy chasing approval. They don't dare to walk a different path out of fear of criticism. They don't dare to try something new, afraid failure will make others laugh. But let me ask you, whose life are you living? Yours or the people talking? And how long will you let your life be confined by the line someone else drew? You have to care, not about everything people say, but about the right things. Care about how you spend your time each day. Care about what you're learning, what you're feeding your mind. Care about your mood each morning, your repeating habits, the emotional reactions you're reinforcing, because every small detail becomes raw material, shaping the version of you that you'll become. The world won't ask how hard did you try, it only responds to the frequency you're living in. And if you live with the frequency of someone distracted, worried about judgment, constantly seeking validation, the world will place you among those who never move. But if you live with the frequency of clarity, focus, initiative, and no need for permission to advance, the world will answer with opportunity, results, and respect. You can choose to live by emotion or live by commitment, but you can't have both. If you want to change your life, you must be more disciplined with yourself than anyone else has ever been. You must have the courage to cut off whatever holds you back, whether it's an old habit, an old friend, or even the old version of yourself. And when you truly begin to care, in the deepest and most meaningful sense, you won't need reminders of what to do because you'll know with certainty if you don't act today. You're slowly building a life that even you won't want to live tomorrow. Success isn't a destination, it's the sum of the choices you make when no one is watching. And every time you choose focus over distraction, action over complaint, silence over applause, that's one more step in the right direction. So stop waiting for the world to care. Don't demand recognition. Don't expect others to understand the vision you're building, because no one needs to understand except you. And if you're still living to be validated by others, then you haven't truly started living at all. You want others to respect your results. Don't talk, do. You want to step out of mediocrity? Don't announce it. Take action. All you need to gain recognition is silence and consistency. Because success doesn't come from declarations, it comes from the quiet moments when you keep going even when no one's watching. It doesn't need a stage, it needs habits. It doesn't need spotlights, it needs relentless repetition. And it is built precisely during those hours when it feels like no one cares. When you sit down to work while it's still dark, when you learn a new skill without showing off, when you keep practicing while others are still asleep, that's when success starts to take shape. No one sees your sweat. No one knows how many invitations you've turned down, how much entertainment you've cut out just to stay focused. And the amazing thing is you don't need them to see, because silence gives you an advantage the crowd will never have, the advantage of depth. Those who talk a lot are often shallow. Those who stay silent are often deep. And those with depth don't need to explain. The more you do in silence, the more you stir curiosity. People start to notice when results show up. They begin to wonder how you advanced so quickly. What they don't realize is that while they were busy crafting an image, you were refining your substance. They spent time building a facade while you invested in building your core. And then, one day, without you saying a word, the world listens. Success doesn't need a warning. It doesn't ask you to announce your plans on social media. In fact, every time you speak too soon, you trick your brain into thinking progress has been made. You get a false dopamine hit from the announcement, and by the time motivation drops, there's not enough left to actually begin. You've wasted the spark on the talk instead of saving it for the work. And that's why so many people who talk well are terrible at finishing. Protect your energy by staying quiet. Let your focus remain undivided by the gaze of outsiders. Every time you share too early, you allow others to enter your personal energy field. And that's dangerous, because not everyone supports you, not everyone wants to see you succeed, and not every piece of feedback is harmless. Sometimes a single doubtful comment is enough to make you hesitate, especially if you're not yet solid within. You must become discreet as a strategy, not because you're afraid, but because you're building something far too important to be traded for cheap applause. You know exactly what you're doing, where you're heading, and those who are truly confident don't need to broadcast their plans to the world. They only need one thing: to keep working so the results speak on their behalf. Don't confuse silence with passivity. Being silent doesn't mean you're standing still. It means you're moving forward in a quiet, steady, effective way. Silent people aren't slow. They just don't waste energy trying to prove themselves. Every step they take is a real one. Every decision they make is a part of a structure they're building in silence. And when it's finished, they don't have to say a word, because a strong structure stands on its own, even if the builder never speaks. So I tell you, don't lose the power of silence. Don't let the noisy fool you into thinking they're moving faster. Remember, the surface never tells you the depth. And anything truly lasting is built in silence, brick by brick, step by step, without applause, without cheers. All it needs is for you to keep going, silent but unstoppable. Your energy is not unlimited. Every morning when you open your eyes, you are granted a certain amount of energy to face the world, and you have two choices. Either use it to build yourself or let others spend it for you. If you don't protect your energy as if it were the most precious asset you have, you will gradually lose everything you once intended to pursue. Your dreams, your focus, your willpower, and eventually yourself. Not everyone deserves your time and mind. Not every invitation is worth accepting. Not every conversation needs a response. Every time you let someone pull you into a pointless argument, a toxic situation, or a valueless relationship, you're draining energy that should have gone towards something more important. The more careless you are with giving away your energy, the more you'll be depleted by things that lead you nowhere. There are people who enter your life not to lift you up, but to test how far down you can be pulled. There are relationships that only survive because you've never set boundaries, and there are situations that drain you repeatedly because you've never been strict enough to walk away. Kindness is necessary, but if you don't learn how to say no, your kindness becomes a trap, one that allows you to be used without even knowing it. Protecting your energy is a strategic decision. It's how you protect your future, because you can't create anything of value if your mind is always in chaos and your emotions are constantly depleted. A scattered mind can't produce a clear vision. A weary heart can't spark motivation. And a person constantly pulled by others' needs will never reach where they truly belong. You don't have to be cold, but you do need boundaries. Boundaries don't divide you from the world. They shield you from what should never be allowed in. Boundaries help you preserve the most essential parts of yourself so you can invest them where they matter. You can't give what you no longer have. And that begins with choosing carefully who you listen to, where you go, what you read, and what information you allow into your mind each day. Look closely at your morning routine. Do you wake up and check your phone first thing? If so, you're putting your mind into reactive mode. You're letting the outside world invade your mood before you've had a chance to own it. A negative headline, an unpleasant comment, a comparison post, just a few seconds at the start of the day are enough to throw off your entire energy. And then you carry that distance through the day, wondering why you can't focus, can't move forward, can't create anything meaningful. The problem isn't your ability, it's that you don't realize where your energy is leaking. Every meaningless notification, every empty conversation, every unchecked negative thought, they are draining you bit by bit, like a water jug with a hole in it. No matter how often you refill it, you won't keep anything if you don't seal the leak. So start by choosing again. Choose silence in the morning to reconnect with your inner self. Choose a no instead of a forced yes. Choose focus over fake busyness. Choose not to respond to things that don't help you grow. And most of all, choose yourself every single day, because when you protect your energy, you're not just safeguarding your current peace, you're actively designing the entire future you're heading toward. Every day, you're nurturing something in your mind. The question is it the future you desire or the fear you've been trying to avoid? You can't plant hope while watering anxiety. You can't want to move forward while spending the entire day obsessing over what might go wrong. One will grow, one will dominate, and you are the one who decides which one wins through your smallest repeated choices. Look at how you react to the world. When faced with a challenge, do you think opportunity or risk? When others succeed, do you feel inspired or inadequate? When you begin something new, do you focus on the possibility of success or the probability of failure? Your mind is functioning like a filter. It only holds on to what you consistently emphasize. If you constantly think about difficulties, it will seek more difficulties. If you keep focusing on risks, it will make you see danger everywhere. And don't think this is some vague philosophy. It's a real biological process. The reticular activating system, RAS, in your brain works like an information gatekeeper. Whatever you repeat in your thoughts becomes its filtering criteria. If you always think about failure, judgment, or shame, the RAS will prioritize pulling those negative signals into your awareness. You're not seeing a negative world, you're looking through a negative lens. One you chose to put on. So don't ask why you feel stuck. Ask, which thought have I repeated too many times? How much of my daily energy am I spending analyzing what might go wrong? And most importantly, am I investing in my dream or paying interest on my fear? Fear is not the enemy. It's a natural brain response designed to protect you from risk. But if you let it operate unconsciously, it becomes a shackle. It makes you hesitate at opportunities you should grab. It makes you reject invitations that could change your life. It keeps you safe, but never truly alive. I'm not asking you to eliminate fear entirely. I'm asking you to do just one thing: recognize it and strip it of the decision-making power you've given it for far too long. Every time you say, not now, I'm not ready, what if I fail, you're letting fear drive your life. And the most dangerous part is fear drives smoothly. You don't realize you're going in reverse until one day you look back and see the future you once dreamed of has turned into a series of what ifs. You don't lack time, you lack the courage to place your energy where it truly matters. One lesson, one skill, one small step, when repeated in focused effort, unshaken by fear, will build a more solid foundation than any complicated strategy. But to do that, you must return power to the future. Let your vision lead, not your emotions. Let your dreams take the wheel, not your fear pressing the brake. Starting today, ask yourself, whenever you're about to delay, what am I feeding within me with this choice? When I choose silence, delay, doubt, what am I nurturing? Potential or insecurity? The answer will reveal the truth. You're not being held back by the outside world, but by what you keep rehearsing inside. And then you'll come to understand a powerful truth. You don't need to do something grand right away. You only need each day to choose one better thought, one braver action, one decision made more for your future than for your fear. And you've already won, not over others, over yourself. You've beaten procrastination. You've beaten self-doubt. You've beaten the habit of living in worst-case scenarios. Because only then will you begin to live in a reality you created instead of one you merely reacted to, shaped by fear. Every repeated action is a brig, either building a stronger version of yourself or quietly destroying your potential. There's no neutral zone. Nothing is harmless if done long enough. A small habit, whether positive or negative, when practiced daily, becomes the tool that shapes the future you're walking toward. And the most surprising part is very few people realize that this power lies in their own hands. You think one day of sleeping in won't matter. One skipped workout won't change much. One lazy day of not reading is no big deal. But what you don't see is this: your brain doesn't view actions as isolated events. It records patterns, it logs frequency, and then it builds your identity based on what you repeat, not what you hope for. You might dream of a healthy body, a breakthrough career, a disciplined mindset, but if your daily habits say otherwise, your dreams are worthless. Look at your 24-hour schedule, no fluff. Just answer honestly. If what you repeat today were multiplied by 365 days, would it take you where you want to go? If not, then you're living within a system that will destroy you in the most silent way, through comfort, through justified delay, through harmless but accumulating choices. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck in old cycles isn't talent, it's disciplines. Who can stay consistent with the right things even when they seem boring? Success doesn't ask you to do big things. It only asks that you do the right thing, but repeatedly, without interruption. Every early morning, every page you read, every time you say no to distraction is an affirmation. You are building yourself. But if you let yourself get pulled into meaningless scrolling, empty conversations, and mindless consumption, you are slowly dismantling your own foundation. Habits are where your real character is revealed. You can't hide from yourself and your habits. They are the rawest, yet most honest version of who you are. You can perform for a few minutes when needed, but you can't fake 24/7 what you repeatedly do. In the end, your habits will either expose you or elevate you. If you're wondering why you're not progressing, the answer isn't a lack of opportunity, it's that you haven't built the habit system that aligns with your goals. Every major result comes from a series of small behaviors. And the good news is, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Instead of trying to do everything in one day, do one thing well, then repeat it. Step by step, day by day, cycle by cycle. No need to show off, no need for recognition. Just stay long enough to make it part of you. The problem is most people underestimate the power of small things. They give up because they think it's been a few days and haven't seen anything, but they forget that the seed doesn't bloom overnight. Everything takes time. And if you're patient enough, you'll see the tiny things you do today are the very things that will make you unshakable in the future. Bad habits follow the same principle. They don't break you immediately. They lull you to sleep. They make you feel okay until one day you wake up in a life that no longer resembles the one you dreamed of. Every delay, every excuse, every time you let tomorrow decide instead of today is how you silently program failure into your future. I tell you this not to blame you, but to help you look again and choose. Choose what you want to repeat, because what you repeat doesn't just become habit, it becomes identity. And identity is the foundation of everything you will either achieve or lose. Not because they're not smart, not because they lack dreams, and not because they don't have opportunities. Most people fail for one reason: they give up too early. They expect big results from their very first efforts. They begin with burning motivation, but they don't have a system to keep the fire alive. When things don't happen as fast as they hoped, they lose patience. When results don't show after a few weeks, they begin to doubt themselves. And when there's no applause, they stop. Failure doesn't arrive as a sudden collapse. It creeps in as a habit of retreat. Every time you procrastinate, every time you choose rest over progress, every time you make excuses instead of practicing discipline, you are removing a brick from the structure you once swore you'd build. And one day you'll look back and see not an unfinished wall, but an empty lot where your dream used to be. I'm not saying failure is bad. Failure is necessary. The problem isn't how many times you fall, it's whether you still dare to get back up after the latest fall. Most people don't lack the ability to rise. They lack a reason big enough to keep going. They let temporary emotion override long-term commitment. They let the voice inside, the whisper that says, maybe just quit, take control. And the tragedy is, they don't even realize. They just removed themselves from the game right before it really began. The reason you fail isn't out there. It lives inside every tiny decision you make when no one's watching. When you're tired, you sleep or get up for 15 more minutes to finish what's unfinished. When you're discouraged, you blame or quietly reset your direction. When you see someone move faster, do you compare and collapse or step back and accelerate yourself? Each of those choices is evidence, and it's those circumstances that determine whether you make it or not. Most people fail not because they're too weak, because they're too easily distracted. They know what needs to be done, but let their phones dictate their schedule. They have goals, but let external events hijack their emotions. They make plans, but let every negative opinion shatter their will. Don't dismiss these as small things, because they're not. These are the silent, deadly weapons that kill discipline without making a sound. You think you're just procrastinating for a day, but in reality, you're training your brain to believe we don't need to do this. And the brain learns fast. It registers, this doesn't matter. From then on, it no longer gives you the energy to execute. Your mind is a machine that learns from behavior. Whatever you repeat, it considers a priority. Whatever you ignore, it throws away. So don't blame yourself for lacking motivation. Ask instead, what have you nurtured long enough for it to become your default? Most people fail because they obsess over feeling right. They only want to act when they feel inspired. They wait for motivation to begin. But true winners know you don't need to feel ready, you just need to start. And everything else will follow. Emotion is a consequence, not a requirement. The more you act, the stronger you feel. But if you wait until you feel okay to act, you'll stay stuck. Because feelings constantly change. You must be awake enough to see this clearly. A real failure doesn't lie in falling down. It lies in refusing to rise again. Failure isn't as scary as losing your will. And willpower doesn't vanish in a single day. It's eroded by each easy choice, each maybe later, each I'll do it tomorrow, each no one's watching anyway. Say those lines enough times and they will extinguish every fire you once had. So I ask you, are you feeding your discipline or fattening your habit of quitting? Because if you don't choose one day it will choose for you. You don't need anyone's permission to begin. You don't need agreement. You don't need advice from someone with experience. And you certainly don't need anyone to confirm that you're good enough, capable enough, or worthy enough to move forward. If you're still waiting, it means you don't fully believe in yourself yet. If you're still asking for permission, it means you're handing over control of your life to someone else. And you'll stay stuck at that crossroads for a very long time because no one's going to hand you a ticket that only you can write for yourself. Every real step forward comes from a solitary decision. When you choose to move, even when no one understands. When you begin something new, even without support. When you dare to be different, knowing difference always comes at a cost. The crowd doesn't grant you power. They demand that you fit into the mediocrity they're used to. And if you wait for their applause, you'll remain trapped inside the safety zone they built for you. That so-called safety is nothing more than a fence painted with recycled advice and invisible limits. This world doesn't reward those who ask. It only creates opportunities for those brave enough to forge their own path. The most successful people you've heard of weren't chosen. They chose themselves early, and they didn't look back. They didn't need approval before they acted. They didn't wait for signs from the environment. They were the sign. They didn't wait for a green light. They built the road. You think you need knowledge, resources, more time, but the truth is the only thing you need is a decision, a firm decision, to give up your need for approval, to abandon the mindset of I'll start when I'm ready, to let go of the false belief that someone out there knows you better than you know yourself. Because when you finally trust your intuition, everything starts to shift, not because the world changes, but because you no longer need its permission. Just think of how many times you've delayed something just because you thought it's not the right time. How many opportunities you let pass because you feared what others might think. How many steps you've stepped back from just because of one disapproving glance, one doubtful comment, or one uncomfortable silence. Those things didn't truly stop you. They only had power because you gave it to them. And once you stop granting them that power, you'll be shocked how far you can go when you're not anchored by invisible permission. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. You don't need validation to make progress. The only thing you need is action. Consistent, quiet, unapologetic action rooted in the courage to be different. The more you act, the more you build evidence for yourself. And the more evidence you build, the less you rely on external validation. That's how inner confidence is formed, through lived experience, not borrowed encouragement. You must be clear. Either you live a life waiting for approval, or you live a life of leadership. You can't have both. A leader doesn't stop to ask for permission. They move because they know where they're going. And that certainty comes from within, not from a vote. I'm telling you this because I've seen far too many people miss their moment just because they thought they weren't allowed yet. But no one has the authority to stop you from living up to your potential. Not your parents, not your teachers, not your boss, not your friends. And sometimes not even the old version of yourself. So if there's one thing you should do today, it's this: stop asking for permission, stand up, take action, and let your results speak for you. No nod of approval needed. Just keep moving forward. You don't need to know all the answers. You don't need to predict every obstacle. You only need one thing: to return to yourself. Because when you stop looking outward and start looking inward, everything becomes clearer. Not because the world becomes easier to understand, but because you are no longer distracted by what doesn't matter on your path. Most people live in a state of ambiguity, not because they lack information, but because they are wasting their focus on things that don't generate value. The focus is the most powerful energy you have. When you can gather all your will, mind, and actions toward a single direction, you start to see change. But most of us never go far enough because we never stay still long enough. We are constantly pulled off track by external signals, what others are doing, what someone is saying, whether something is worth worrying about. Instead of living according to our internal design, we live by reflex, always reacting to what's outside instead of proactively creating from within. Be honest. How much of your day do you actually invest in yourself? Not in taking care of your appearance. I'm talking about developing skills, upgrading your mindset, restructuring your behavior, how much of that do you intentionally plan and consistently maintain? Or are you living in the cycle of what does everyone else need? Where is everyone else going? What do others think? Every time you let your focus drift toward them, you are draining energy from yourself. And if this continues long enough, you'll lose your sense of agency, the very root power of successful people. You weren't born to live as a mirror. You don't need to react to everything you see. You need to become the starting point, the center of a clear influence zone, the one who sends out signals, not the one chasing echoes. When you focus on yourself, you gradually narrow your lens, you filter information, you control your time, you adjust your emotions. And here's the magic. You realize you don't need to know everything. You just need to take the next right step. Everything else will follow when you are clear enough. Clarity doesn't fall from the sky. It's created in the process of being silent, observing yourself, and repeating what's right until it forms structure. That's why focus is a behavior, not a state of being. You don't have focus, you train it. Every time you sit down and refuse distraction, you're training. Every time you choose the hard task over the easy one, you're training. Every time you say no to something that doesn't move you forward, you're training. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean being selfish. On the contrary, it's how you prepare to give more in a more valuable way. A chaotic person can't inspire. A lost person can't help others find their way. You can only create change outside when you've truly established order inside. And that order only comes when you know what should stay and what needs to go. If you're feeling lost, tired, lacking motivation, perhaps you've let your attention wander too long. It's time to reel it back in, cut out the noise, remove others' expectations, stop updating others' lives as if they're more important than your goals. And truly start with this simple question. What am I doing today to move myself forward? Every small action, when performed with focus, will create big results. But the biggest action, before anything else, is the choice of where you place your attention. Place it on others, and you'll be fragmented. Place it on yourself, and you'll be unified. And where there is unity, there is power.